Welcome. I am MrFearless, and this is a fully automatic Bonemeal farm I made based on a fully automatic and AFK villager farm I created that uses potatoes and a smoker to create baked potatoes to put in a composter, which is one of the most efficient ways to create bone meal. This farm can drop half a stack to a full stack of bone meal every hour. Even though it's not very efficient compared to skeleton farms, this farm is very efficient if you're playing on peaceful because it's one of the only ways to get plenty of bone meal without having skeletons spawn, because in peaceful they will not spawn at all. So now I'm going to show you how to modify that previous farm into this so that you can have a fully automatic bone meal farm of your own. This is the world where I created the fully automatic villager crop farm, and all we need to do is make a few subtle changes to turn this into a fully automatic bone meal farm. The first step is to actually turn this into a potato farm. And that's because potatoes can be smelted into baked potatoes, which is one of the best items to put in the composter to get bone meal. The next change is going to start over here in the water stream. Coming from the bubble column, we're going to follow the stream until it actually bends and turns towards the hoppers. And right at that bend is where we're going to place a trapdoor on the block facing away from the bubble column, just like this. And we're going to make sure it's open and facing upward. And that's so that if any item comes through the stream, it'll hit this trapdoor and slide in the center towards the hoppers. This could be a problem if it doesn't do that, because we're going to change this end area here, and it might land on the side of the hoppers right here and not get sucked up by them. It's one of the glitches or quirks of this version of the game, that hoppers will not suck up items that are on the rim. So once we make that change, we're actually also going to get out a sign and place it directly going towards the bubble column, like this. And that's so that the stream coming from the bubble column and the stream we're going to eventually place inside of the trapdoor do not mix, because if they did, the items would just bounce back and forth between the trapdoor and the bubble column and not go anywhere. Now, we're going to actually delete all the rest of the bubble stream, or the water stream, past the sorter, which includes this section of the storage system. We want all the potatoes to go into making bone meal. We don't want any potatoes extra, otherwise it will diminish the returns of the farm. So once we've done that, we're actually going to place a single block right here at the very edge, past the hopper. And now we're going to copy this hopper sorting system over one, so then we can actually pick up as many potatoes as we can. This farm drops a lot of potatoes, and one sorter is not actually enough to pick them all up. So in order to do that, we're just going to copy this sorter exactly block for block over one, like this. Once we have done all that with the redstone, it's time to tackle the piston. The piston's a little bit more difficult because we actually have to delete the obsidian and the piston to place the piston in the back there. We can use any piston we want, but regular pistons are cheaper than sticky pistons, so that's what we're going to use. And we're just going to place them against the redstone like that, with an obsidian that they're both pointing into. And that's so they don't fire whenever this sorter is activated. And we're also going to place 2 redstone torches on each of the pistons. Next, we're going to deal with the hoppers for this sorter we've just made. And the first hopper is actually going to be pointing directly into the block where the comparator's pulling it out, the signal out from. Then we're going to go beneath that and pull out a hopper going directly into this hopper right here. This hopper is the one that goes into the chest, like this. So it's directly beneath that sorter we were just working on. And then we're going to go above it and place another hopper going into that one. And that's because these hoppers get locked whenever the sorter is inactive, and anything that's trying to transport in these can get stuck, so we have to go a little bit lower in order to connect them together. Once we've done that, it's actually time to put the potatoes into the sorter itself, so then it's sorting the correct materials. Now we're going to fill up the item sorters, so then they will only accept potatoes. So we're going to go into each sorter and place 41 potatoes plus 4 of any other material. Just make sure that this material is nothing that's going to end up in the system, because it'll break the sorter. This could be any type of block, so like glass or whatever, or it could be just a renamed block. And we're going to do that for both of these sorters. Once we finish the item sorters by placing the items inside them, we're going to go over here to where we had the trapdoor, and we're going to place in some water. In order to do that, though, we need to sneak. So we're going to place the water right there. Once we do that and waterlog this trapdoor, it should flow down all the way over there to the hoppers. Now we're going to make a few changes to the redstone. And really, all we need to change is this observer clock right here. We just need to move it over one block in this direction. So we're going to take our observers and just move them over. Just like that. Like that, actually. Next, we're going to have to move the sticky piston too. So we're going to delete it, and then delete the redstone that's directly below the observer now, and place the sticky piston there instead. Now we need to make sure that this actually powers those droppers. So in order to do that, we're going to place a block right here that this redstone dust is going into. And that's so that when this sticky piston raises up, it pushes the observer, activates the clock, powers the block, and the droppers. But if you notice, we've moved the observers over, and it's no longer going to power this dropper. So what we're going to do is place a block directly behind that dropper, and just one repeater going into it like that. And now we're actually done with all the redstone. The next thing we're going to have to work on is the composter, the smoker, and the storage area for your bone meal. And that all starts here along this rail line. This rail line is going to distribute your potatoes directly into your hopper that goes into the smoker and becomes bone meal. So we're going to have to delete the block right there that this rail is pointing into, and delete the block below that. And right there, at the same level as the droppers, we're going to place a hopper. But in order to do that, we need a block below it, so we can directly place this hopper going downward. Below that hopper, we're going to get out a smoker and place it like that. And below the smoker, going directly into this composter, we're going to have another hopper. So we should have hopper, smoker, hopper, composter. On top of that very topmost hopper, we're going to place a regular rail. But you want to get out your powered rail as well, because you're going to need that. So like I said, we're going to place a regular rail right here on top of this hopper. It should slant downward like this. Now, whenever that minecart chest travels, it'll also deposit some potatoes in this little hopper here. But it'll also fly off into the oblivion. So what we're going to need to do is, we're going to need to place a block right there, next to that hopper, a powered rail, and then against that powered rail, another block, so it can hit this and bounce back. We're also going to need to power this powered rail. We're going to power it the same way we did over here. But this time we're going to place the redstone torch directly on top of the observer. Then we should have a powered rail here, which is below this minecart chest, a regular rail, a powered rail, a regular rail, and another powered rail. So 3 powered rails and 2 regular rails. Next we're going to tackle the storage, which is going to go over here. So we're going to have to dig through these blocks and actually find where the other blocks are. The first one we're going to find is the smoker, which is right here. So you can see it's directly below floor level, right there. And we're going to need a hopper pointing into it so we can deposit our fuel to smelt with. Like this. And on top of that hopper, we're going to need to delete 2 blocks and put a chest, or a double chest right here like this. It could be a single chest, but a double chest gives you more storage space. You don't want to use a barrel here because barrels will mess with the villagers. They can connect to it and become fishermen, which are totally useless. Above this chest, we're going to have to put a stair block or another transparent block like glass, so you can see we can't open it. So we're going to take out stairs or any glass block of our choice, delete the block right above the chest, and replace it like this. You could also replace it like this so you don't have to see this stuff over there from inside the AFK area, which is right here. Then we're going to go down a couple more blocks, all the way into the previous redstone we worked on, which is this composter right here. This composter is the one directly above this repeater that comes out of the torch tower. And that's the one that we're using to smelt the items. So, we're going to point a hopper in this direction, towards the AFK area, right below the composter. And in order to do that, we need to place a regular block of any kind so that we can place the hopper onto to point in that direction. So like that. So as you can see, the hopper is pointing this way. And it's directly below the composter. And then pointing into that block, we're going to put another double chest, like this. Like this, if we can get it. There we go. So we'll have a hopper pointing into a double chest. And just like above, we're going to have the same problem where we can't access this chest because of this block. But as you can see, we can actually see in there with that block. And we don't want any baby zombies or anything going in there and biting your villagers. So again, we're going to take some stair blocks or glass and cover that up. Now, we have a place to put our fuel and to grab the bone meal out of. But we don't have a way to access both of them yet. So we're going to delete the block right next to the chest, like this, right here. And that will create a pathway we can use to get all the way down there. You could use ladders, or stairs if you really wanted, but I prefer to use scaffolding because it allows me to go all the way down to the redstone, at the very bottom, and all the way up to the AFK area. And using this scaffolding, we can access the fuel chest and the bone meal chest, way down here. And we can go down all the way to the bottom to mess with the redstone if anything goes wrong or if we want to change something. And travel all the way back up to the top to see the AFK area itself. Now, we've completed almost everything we need. The last bit is to deal with the villagers. And this is where it gets a little tricky. Once we want to deal with the villagers, we're going to have to go into the villager area. And actually, we're going to have to delete these blocks if you have the farm off, so get in here. But you're going to have to delete these 3 beds and these 3 composters. That's because we're going to add a 4th villager, and we don't want him connected to any of that stuff. And that 4th villager is going to be a butcher. He's going to connect to this smoker right here. Oops. Delete the power rail. He's going to be connected to this smoker right here. And that's actually really important, because the villagers that are farming can occasionally lose their profession and become butchers themselves. And you don't want that to happen. So we're going to create a little platform right next to the smoker, and on this block right here to the right, by the hopper, is where we're going to have a little villager sitting. He's going to sit and connect to that smoker. And we're going to build it up 2 blocks, and we're going to push one in, or for me, I could just spawn one. Like this. And you'll notice, if he's not a nitwit, he can't be a nitwit. Don't ever use the green goats. They're bad. They can't ever change their profession. And they'll be stuck like this forever. So unfortunately, he has to go. And we have to spawn another one. And as you can see here, that little bandana on his head means he's a butcher. And he'll be connected to that smoker. But he also might need a bed, because you don't want him connecting to any of the beds we placed down there. So we're going to place one right next to him. And he'll actually be able to sleep in this bed, because he can access it. But if he sleeps in it, he may spawn here. So we're just going to cover these blocks up. So once you have him, you can go back to the regular villager area and replace all the blocks we deleted, which were the beds and the whatnot. And you can actually do this if you have other villagers in here, but it might be tricky because they will connect to this bed all the time. The bed with this butcher. You might have to move them all the way and bring them back, or kill them, unfortunately, if you've already started the farm. You might have to kill them anyway if they were farming in this with any other type of food. So if they were using seeds or beetroot or carrots, this farm won't work because they'll have that in their inventory and they'll plant that instead of potatoes. So it's better off just to start with a fresh farm, unless you already use potatoes. If they were already planting potatoes, you're perfectly fine. You could just move them away and start up with a new farm once you have all this set up. So now that we've replaced the beds, we're also going to have to replace the composters. And there's 3 of them for the 3 villagers. And that goes right here, right next to the stair, which is the most important composter, because that's the one that's going to be smelting your items. Or turning your items into bone meal, your baked potatoes. One right here next to this block, and another one right there. You also want to cover this area up, so the villagers cannot get out and nothing can get in. You're going to make sure that there's no way in or out of this area, and there's no way for things to bite them through the floor. So you can see here, there might be a way from the bite through here. So we're going to place a block there, cover that up. So you just want to make sure that there's no way anything can get them in here. Then, because we deleted those blocks for the door, we're also going to replace those. And once we do that, and get our villagers back in here, this farm is actually done. The one caveat is that you have to wait about 9 hours for these hoppers to completely fill. And that sounds like a long time, but that's only one AFK session if you're really lucky. It'll take 7 to 9, I think, in my testing to fill those up, these 3 hoppers and these 3 droppers. But if you have enough potatoes, and you could fill these up by yourself, have at it. Because once those are filled, this farm will run non-stop, and it'll drop 2 stacks, or roughly 2 stacks of potatoes in this hopper every single time it fires. And that happens every 3 hours. I mean, every hour. 3 times every hour. Once you have all that finished, your farm is complete. You want to make sure that you've closed it up, got your villagers back inside, and it starts working. The one caveat, though, is these hoppers and these 3 droppers need to be completely filled with potatoes before you can actually start getting bone meal. And that'll take about 8 hours to fill these all up, but you can always shove in potatoes if you want here to fill it up manually, if you have enough. But once that begins, every single 20 minutes, this farm will activate and deposit roughly 2 stacks of potatoes. And every 2 stacks of potatoes becomes 16 bone meal. You can have more than that, or you could have less, but in an hour, you can get from a half stack to all the way to a full stack of bone meal. And like I said before, this is not a very efficient farm when it comes to other bone meal farms. There's plenty of ways to get it in bulk, but this is a way to get it AFK and peaceful without ever having to deal with skeletons. So if that's something you want, this might be a farm for you. Well, this tutorial is going to end up being a lot shorter than the previous one, thankfully. If you have any problems with this bone meal farm, or the previous villager farm, leave a comment below and I'll see if I can fix it. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed it. It took me a while to set it up, but now that it's done, I think I'm going to be laying off the villager farms for a little while. I hope you had a great day today, and if not, there's always tomorrow. And I'll see you then.